Welcome to another day in the Matrix. This is Red Pill Podcast 181. Hope you're all having an amazing weekend out there. A lot to cover today, so we're going to get straight into things. But if you're new here, welcome to the Wolf Pack. Great to have you here with us. If you've yet to get access to our Discord server, just go ahead and send me a direct message here on Patreon. Do not comment below or do not email me. The only way that I could onboard you is if you send me a direct message on Patreon. I still see people commenting in posts asking for Discord access, and this is the reason why I need to share it every week. So please follow those instructions. It's the only way I'll be able to get you into our Discord server. Also, we're doing amazing with the altcoin voting system of the coins that we cover every single week. These altcoins, typically we do about 4 to 5. This week we'll be doing about 5 different projects. We have Ondo, Injective, Turbo Token, Jasmy, as well as some quick words of wisdom on Caspa. And for anyone who's new here who is not aware of how we do our voting system on the altcoins, just simply go into the comments section of this Red Pill podcast and you will see other members submitting the names of different projects, the whole crypto and ticker symbol, and this is how we do our voting here. Whatever one gets the most likes or thumbs up is what will be selected for the following week. Now, without any further ado, appreciate every single one of you for joining and checking out today's podcast. Got a bunch of different details to dive deeper into regarding this upcoming harvest moon, this full moon and lunar eclipse just days away. So that's what today's podcast will be dedicated to. But to kick things off, we finally made it to Red Pill 181, and that's the Satoshi Nakamoto code. And funny enough, taking from today, which is September 15th of 2024, to Satoshi's recent birthday on April 5th of 2024, right before the Great American Eclipse. This is 163 days, and 163 is the 38th prime number, and we're actually about to move into the 38th week of the year tomorrow. And if you're an Aussie wolf, it's already the 38th week of the year over there in the land down under. And I hope you guys see how coded this all is, because I've had this happen throughout the last 3.5 years where we just have these synchronicities in the code. Even, little things like seeing the subscriber amount match, or, anyways, as I've mentioned in recent videos, this number 38 is very powerful esoterically. It's 3 8s, 888 equals 24. And this recent Red Pill podcast, this Red Pill podcast right now is 181, and 181 is the 42nd prime number. Also, if you're unaware of what I'm showing you here, this is my Year of the Dragon Decoded, which is available for all of you guys here on Patreon. You just got to search function for dragon, and you'll probably find this is the key thing that shows up. Also, in our Discord server, you could do the same thing. Use the search bar. It is very helpful. But we have this 4224 connection here with Satoshi Nakamoto. The mirror number of 42 is 24, and tomorrow, the first day of the 38th week of the year, it will be on the 16th of September, and you'll see that has a 24 standard date numerology. So what's even more crazy about this being Red Pill 181 is that we are literally 181 days from the start of the upcoming lunar cycle, which is in 2025, taking from today. So you can see September 15th, Red Pill 181. 181 days from now will be March 14th, 2025. Making this the first official day of the lunar cycle energy, 181 days from now. Absolutely wild how synced This all is. So, like they say, everything happens for a reason. I feel we're experiencing a scripted reality, and these are all signs. And I also just want to take a moment to share my gratitude with you all for being part of this journey. 181 podcasts every single week for the past 3.5 years. What a wild ride it's been, and cheers to many, many more. Just wanted to show you a couple of these examples of how, even in my reality here, we're getting this code unfolding, and perhaps you could apply some of these things to you if you find numbers that are showing up a lot in your life. I get these questions all the time from people that are saying, oh, I always see the number 27. And what happens is once you start realizing those numbers, that's the matrix, that's the simulacrum trying to send you a message, and you need to tap into your intuition at those moments and see how it all is in alignment. And it's funny because I've been talking about this number 181 going back to the creation of my crypto mastermind course. So this has been since the beginning of my journey. I've been talking about this 181. I mean, a lot in the first year when we were kind of introducing this gematria code specifically to the world of crypto. And Satoshi Nakamoto, again, giving you this 181. Unbelievable. So over the past couple weeks, we've put emphasis on this upcoming week, 38th week of the year, for several reasons, as I've exposed all the way back in February when I actually released this year of the Dragon Decoded. As you can see, when I click here, it was actually released on the last day of January, right there to kick off the month of February. And this is all about the number 38. Just brought it up. 38, 3/8. 8 plus 8 plus 8 equals 24. Earlier, I also mentioned the number 42. It's the mirror number of our key number 24. So we need to keep this upcoming week. Well, I've already warned you about this upcoming week, not in a negative way, not like a bad warning, but just kind of have exposed the significance of it. And then, of course, we also have the 42nd week of the year. Let's keep in mind, based on the code I just shared with you. And big significance for this week is it will be the last eclipse of the year. So we do have a lunar eclipse on October 17th, just so happens to land in the 42nd week of that year. So now let's get into today's decode. We are approaching the 38th week of the year, which has a partial lunar eclipse on September 17th and 18th. This will be a full supermoon in Pisces, also called the harvest moon. The harvest is tied to Saturn, the god of harvest, also known as Kronos. And when we get into the gematria to synchronize this all together, you're going to see how harvest gives you 93 in gematria and Saturn gives you 93 in the same cipher. And consider the moon will be in the sign of Pisces for this upcoming full moon in a couple days. And Pisces is jointly ruled by Jupiter as above and Neptune so below. And speaking of this 38, with the 38th week of the year, we have Neptune giving you this 38 code in Chaldean, very powerful cipher. And we're talking about this lunar eclipse happening on the 38th week of the year, talking about Pisces and how Neptune rules Pisces. So Neptune is the ruler of the waters below. And speaking of which, right now Europe is experiencing a water ritual, unfortunately, with record-breaking flooding in several European countries. I believe Poland, Czech Republic, Romania, to name a few, and even in some bigger cities. As of today, I believe Vienna, Austria. So if you or someone you know is being affected by these floods, I really hope you and your family are okay. I hope you're safe, and hopefully these rains calm down soon. Sincerely, this is really unfortunate to hear. But Mother Nature ain't all sunshine and rainbows. And there's a reason why esoterically Jupiter or Zeus or Hadad or Baal, they're considered the king of the gods. And it's because they are the weather. That's what they are. They are symbolic of weather, which rules over us and all sentience. So anyways, it's tough to hear about all of these floods that are going on over there in Europe. I'm sure there's some members here that are affected by it because we are a global community and have a lot of European wolves in our pack. So hope everything's okay for you. Now, getting back to this, we're talking about Neptune and also known as Poseidon. And we were talking about this number 38. Well, we also have the 38 synchronized with Poseidon here in one of our reverse ciphers, just to bring it up. But if we go over here to the date of the 18th, which will be Wednesday, September 18th, it's basically when this supermoon will be at 100%, and it will be in the sign of Pisces. Let me bring the gematria of this in. We have that 71 and 26, and I want you to see how on Wednesday, September 18th, we'll have a 71 double-digit date numerology and a 26 standard date numerology. I mean, how much more could it be perfectly coded? And what makes it even more perfect is the sun will be in the sign of Virgo, and I want you to look at that 71. We're just talking about the 71 in Pisces, but the moon will be in the sign of Pisces, but the sun will be in Virgo. And look at this, Virgo also gives you 71 in the same cipher. Also, remember, symbolically, Pisces is the beginning and the end. It's the alpha and the omega, especially in this hemisphere. The hemisphere with Europe and the US, because that's kind of what we're dealing with now regarding money and finance. Whether you believe that the money is controlled by the city of London, or you believe that it's more important to consider the New York Stock Exchange with Manhattan, New York City, it doesn't matter. We know that the unholy trinity would be the city of London, Washington, D.C., and the Vatican, city of the Vatican outside of Rome, Italy. Whatever you believe, we can talk about this all on other, podcasts, but I actually do have a dedicated section to the Vatican, decoded symbolically also in my decoding mastermind course, if you're interested in that kind of stuff. But getting back to this, we were talking about what Pisces is symbolic of, and that's the beginning and the end, or the alpha and omega, and that has to deal with an energetic reset. And it's so interesting to have this upcoming autumnal equinox right around the corner, tied to this harvest moon, when the sun is in Virgo in both sidereal and tropical. And opposing Virgo on the wheel is Pisces on the zodiac wheel. And here we have this harvest moon in Pisces, but the sun in Virgo. So you have the sun and the moon, kind of this relationship between the spirit realm and the physical realm, even though there is importance of the black sun, which again would require its own decodes and also covered in depth in my decoding mastermind. But just want to try to add in all these layers today so you can know why the market behaves the way that it does during this specific time frame. Hopefully this gnosis can be applied to all the other months for you if you're interested, and you'll see more as to why this matrix operates the way it does, especially in regards to specifically finance. So that's the purpose of this today. So we're talking about the opposition of Virgo and Pisces on the zodiac wheel. We have the moon in Pisces for this harvest full moon, and the sun in Virgo. And as some of you are aware, it's when the sun is in Pisces when we have the vernal equinox. And just a side note, I prioritize sidereal over tropical when it comes to the dates. But anyways, let's get back to this. The way I'm interpreting this setup regarding the super harvest moon in Pisces leading into this upcoming autumnal equinox next weekend is effectively a balancing energy. So we're here in eclipse season. And even though I say balancing energy, and some might find this to be a neutral phrase, remember, we're here in crypto land where it's incredibly volatile. And on the day of this lunar eclipse, this upcoming Wednesday, will be when we have Fed Chair Powell speak at the FOMC meeting. September 18th, this date that we're decoding, this full moon that we're decoding. So we're entering eclipse season with this very important exoteric event this upcoming Wednesday, miércoles, day of Mercury. Mercury is the messenger. This is why they scripted these meetings to have Jerome Powell speak on Wednesdays. It's a ritual to Mercury. Mercury is the god of fiat money. Some people call it fiat, but it's actually pronounced fiat. Now, that, of course, is money printed out of thin air. So remember, Mercury is the prince of the power of the air. And we have this upcoming Wednesday, September 18th, tied to October 7th, 2023, which we've been bringing up quite a bit lately. And we have this exactly 11 months and 11 days apart. This is your 1111 code. You guys probably have heard all about the 1111, see it on the clock all the time. It's quite exoteric, but pretty interesting how we have that 1111 synchronicity with this particular date, and we're going to be adding more to this as we go. But what's really important about this is the number 347, because it's the 69th prime number. That number 69 is the yin yang. It's also symbolic of Pisces. If you look at the symbol of Pisces, the two fish and the way that they're overlaid, I mean, it depends on how you look at it, but it's actually supposed to be looking like that yin yang. We have also seen other symmetrical symbols, and they're symmetrical because they come back to parts of the body. I know everyone wants to make astrology about this thing above, but remember, as above, so below. So everything that's happening in the sky, it starts from you, because astrology is based on the human experience. This is why many astrologers believe that what happens in the cosmos is what affects us and our behavior, our outcomes, our paths, etc. It is whatever you believe it to be, but when we're talking about this symbol of Pisces and the 6-9 and the yin yang, and we're really just talking about balance, we're talking about symmetry. Also, we see that symmetry in the sign of Cancer when we're talking about the 69 specifically. I mean, it's literally perfect when you look at that sign. Although, again, it just determines who's showing you the sign, the way that it's symbolic. And getting back to this, we're talking about this beginning and the end, the alpha and the omega. This is the harvest, talking about the harvest full moon. My intuition says, although a harvest is a reaping what you sow sort of energy, the fact the supermoon is in the sign of Pisces in lunar astrology, and the moon is symbolic of the matrix, the simulacrum, the physical realm, and Pisces is symbolic of a reset, this tells me it's a more neutral essence. One energy cancels out the other. And based on how the markets have been for crypto specifically over the past 6 months, to me, this is a more positive sign, considering that, well, Bitcoin has been down and sideways for half a year now. Now, for the ones in our group that are savvy with astrology, you're already aware that the harvest moon is usually in the sign of Pisces, transitioning into the sign of Aries. In some years it would be in Aries, but mostly in Pisces. So the point of today's decode was to give a more esoteric deep dive as to why the energy of our market in September tends to be a balancing energy. So in regards to the charts, for example, if we were to have a bloody August, then we tend to see a slightly green September, slightly green to neutral September. And if we have and for instance, that happened last year, where we had a down or red August, but then we had a balancing recovery type September. Now, on the other end, if we have a very bullish August, we then have a noticeable correction for September, which is the case most of the time, actually. We've seen this even in the year of 2020, moving into the price discovery phase for the crypto bull run. We had a pretty decent August 2020, and then a pretty noticeable correction in September, and then we were sideways and neutral, and then started to recover October, November. So when we get those noticeable corrections in September, in the years where we have a decent August, it's typical that we see that correction specifically around the harvest moon. And if we have a sideways August, which is the case for Bitcoin in over a decade worth of chart history, wasn't the case this time around, but it is what the data shows us, then we would typically have a sideways September, again, in most cases. And this is also somewhat applicable to the traditional markets. Now, one very important thing to bring up, because I keep getting asked about it, is the theme of market crashes in the months of September and October, which is undeniable. But first thing I need to mention is that most, if not all, of those particular market crashes that we could isolate were during or right the year before a Shemitah year. So if you're new here to my work, you might not have heard of this before. I did try to give a little bit of information about it in my last YouTube video, so check that out if you haven't already. But the Shemitah year is a 7-year cycle practiced in Judaism. And since the last one we had was September 2021 through September 2022, and we even had a Jubilee, a 50-year cycle from September 2022 to September 2023. So here we are exactly 1 year from the end of the recent Jubilee and 2 years out from that Shemitah influence on the markets. So this makes me less concerned for this month and the next, October, regarding these markets. Even though we are in an absolute bubble that is undeniable. It just seems that they want this bubble to continue to grow for a little bit longer. But this is reality at the end of the day. When you're watching the bubble expand, it's hard to feel comfortable, especially as an esoteric analyst. So I'm not trying to say that there won't be a potential correction deeper for September and October into the election, because I've already told you that exoterically that's the case many times for election years. But as for like a crazy market crash, like a Black Monday sort of situation, I have a hard time accepting that would happen just in relation to where we are with the Hebrew calendar. We're not in market crash vibes as much as we are like war vibes, and those things need to be discussed because we're looking at this holistically. So yes, we're in a bubble, but it seems the bubble has a little bit more time to expand. The meniscus hasn't gotten too massive just yet, but I do also need to bring up the fact that next year is the year of the snake. And if you search for what was the worst, quote unquote, worst year regarding the death toll or the bloodiest years of World War I and World War II, you'll find the year 1917 and 1941. Both of those are the year of the snake. Let me quickly pull this up. So we'll be getting the years of 1917, and this is not far enough back in the data, but you could go research it on your own if you want to find out what the Chinese year was in the year of the snake. Chinese New Year was in 1917, but I can guarantee you it was the year of the snake. And then we have this 1941. Although remember, the last time we had the same type of snake year, which was the wood snake, would be 65 and 66. So we could go back into the S&P charts and we could dial this down a little bit further if we wanted to, into 1965 and see how things... Actually, I'm glad that I just thought about this because I could pull that up and then keep that in the background for finishing off today's decode. Okay, so here we have 64 leading into 65. I'm just going to keep that up. But I just wanted to bring up how the worst years, not for the markets, but for the actual wars, were 1917, 1941 for World War I and World War II, year of the snake. And guess what happened both of those years? The USA entered both of those wars during those years. 1917 and 1941. And if you check in with the World War II timeline, you'll see in 1941, specifically around this September to October timeframe of the year of the snake, this is when we get some key events that we've all heard about regarding the Holocaust. But we also get Ukraine and Russia entering the script again. We have Kyiv, you could see Odessa, Kharkov, excuse me if I'm not pronouncing these right, Rostov, Moscow. So we're getting this like September, October, November energy. And why that's important is that we have a solar or lunar eclipse, in 2025 in September. I'm gonna pull this up real quick, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I'm about a year out, but I try to not gatekeep anything from you guys. I need to tell you whatever I am thinking about the day of making these podcasts. It's really important. I'm not one to hold back information, even if it's far, far in advance. I think it's critical that you know this. So we have 2025, a total lunar eclipse in September 7th, September 8th, during the year of the snake, aligning it with the timeline of the World War II timeline. This does worry me. So we were talking about the bubble earlier. I would anticipate this bubble we're in to show some serious weakness by September after that lunar eclipse, and probably going into it. And I'm speaking from the angle of the traditional markets. And then, of course, we'll look at what was going on back in 65 too, to just have more data for you guys. But this will also be, now that I brought it up, it will be the second lunar eclipse of our lunar cycle. And we have yet to see Bitcoin specifically bullish after this specific eclipse. And that's the second lunar eclipse of a lunar cycle. And that eclipse is essentially 1 year from today. So you're more than prepared. So unless Bitcoin literally copies the last year of the snake, where it did effectively top out at the end of November 2013, I could pull that up. So we're over here. Boom. We have the end of 2013, year of the snake. Unless we were to copy that, it's unlikely this happens that way next year, because we were still in a solar cycle in late 2013, and the lunar cycle didn't start until April 2014. That does not align with the way things are looking this time around regarding the astrology. So we were in the year of the horse during this start of the lunar cycle, while we'll be starting our lunar cycle during this upcoming year of the snake. So I don't think there's an opportunity for us to be bullish during the year of the horse. I don't see us, I mean, I think we'll already be in a bear market by then, across the board. And I don't think Q4 of the year of the snake is going to be the same for Bitcoin as it was back in 2013, considering the difference of where we were in the lunar and solar cycle. Because we'll be starting our lunar cycle by March of 2025. So I know I could dive much deeper into this, but it would require so many, slides and a big presentation. I've actually already covered this in my crypto decoding blueprint. So again, you guys are Patreon supporters. You get the biggest discount available in my courses. And if you wanted something that I've been talking, if to get more clarity on everything I've spoken about today, it's the Decoding Mastermind. This will give you all the information on the decoding concepts, plus it includes my crypto decoding blueprint for free within that course. So it's the best value and you get the biggest discount. Just make sure you use the promo code in the description below. But with all of that being said, I still feel that January 2025 should be bullish for crypto and the traditional markets as well, and potentially continue bullish through Q1 2025 until we reach the start of our lunar cycle on March 13th, total lunar eclipse. And also, the stock market could effectively top out in January 2025. So what I just mentioned a moment ago is specific to crypto. And what we could even see is a positive February 2025. I wouldn't be shocked if the altcoins had a really good February. And when we look at this time frame over here of February 2021 was a continuation in the breakout, and that was really where the market topped out. If we look at the last bull run, it was pretty much February. And if I was to turn on the lunar cycles, it was right around this new moon, before the full moon at least, which is critical to bring up, and there wasn't any eclipses here. So post fourth solar eclipse, heading into January, February, the following calendar year, should be pretty good for us, based on all things considered. But also, with that being said, when we were talking about the second lunar eclipse of the lunar cycle, which will be September of 2025, we actually had a major correction in the start of the lunar cycle when we had the May 2021 lunar eclipse. This was like a 54% correction. Okay. Now, what that means in plain English is I'm not going to play around with that March 2025 lunar eclipse. I don't care. You know, it really seems that it's a GTFO moment if we're bullish leading up to it, and to not play around too close to it, because you can see it was about 1 month of a little bit of a fake out energy where we had this lower high, and then it just got really bad in May. So that I would not be playing around with the March lunar eclipse because of that. Now, lastly, for our upcoming full moon on September 18th, this harvest moon from the 17th until the 18th, it connects to the Chinese New Year, and I think that's important to bring up as well. Sorry, it's the 10th. So from Chinese New Year, Saturn Day, February 10th, 2024 to this upcoming Wednesday is 222 days. And this number also is symbolic of balance and symbolic of alignment. And this Chinese New Year was the year of the dragon. And we're going to have that 22 code in the dragon, which is the master builder, master destroyer number, again, tied to a reset, which I take it as a reset of energy. And a typical full moon is like a release, and this full moon is a lunar eclipse. So I feel balance of energy more than I anticipate any major moves to the downside, like any dramatic corrections. I feel like we've been so down and sideways now that it's about time. Most of the weak hands should have moved on from now. So this makes me expect this upcoming FOMC meeting to not be as bearish as some are anticipating. And I know this past week for the S&P 500 was an incredible recovery. I mean, really, really wild to see. We got a weekly close that was within just a little bit of our highs, and effectively a bullish engulfing candle off of one of the worst weeks the stock market has seen across the board since 2008. What a recovery. So when you zoom out, it's not that big of a problem, eh? The trend is your friend. So I am aware of all things considered. I do suspect whatever we saw last week or the past 2 weeks is a pricing in of what the market expects coming into this Wednesday. Although I find it interesting how the next FOMC meeting, the following one, will be on the 6th and 7th of November, which is literally right after the US elections. And this lands on a Thursday where Fed Chair Powell will be speaking instead of the typical Wednesday. And that has yet to be the case for a while. So I believe they're just doing that because of the election, but it's like, why do it that week? Why not do it the week earlier? Why not do it the week after? You're doing it immediately after the election. And we already decoded that in the last Red Pill. So check that out if you haven't already. But I'm definitely expecting a ritual for this election, kind of similar to 2000, you know, with the recount situation of Florida. I shared the 3 scenarios that are likely to occur. And this is a very strange one, but check that last podcast out if you haven't. Anyways, kind of fishy, you know, how they're doing the meeting immediately after that. So what does that mean? Like I've shared so many times with you, for the stock market, it's typical we see a micro top formed in September. So here we are. I mean, we're pretty damn close. We're like what, within a percentage? We're within a half, fucking 0.4%. If we closed next week at 0.4% higher, we would be on a new all-time high weekly close for September. Just consider this, all right? Now, it's typical for us to have a correction after a micro top in September into the elections, maybe 7 to 10 days after the election. And I know for some of you, this is a repeat of information, but I know new people are entering our community all the time. So it's just a recap. We typically see 1 week to 10 days after the election is when we finish off that corrective or like bearish energy. We form a bottom. And then we actually pivot and break even higher into the end of the year, making a new yearly high to finish off the year, and in most cases also continue into the month of January as well, which aligns with everything I've shared earlier. And then, of course, we have this exoteric data of the election years. Here it says September's of presidential election years are not all that bad because this blue line is non-election years, and you could see it's one of the worst performing months, but in the case of an election year, it's not all that bad. October sort of sideways. November slightly in the red, but nothing too worrisome. December, we do very well, and then January, blue is important because we won't be in an election year anymore. This is data going back to 1896. This is a long time horizon. So I suspect that's how it's going to go as well, followed by a kind of mediocre February. And now you guys have a forecast for like a half a year from now. But we're taking it month by month. We're doing our best navigating this whole thing. Patience is needed for investors. This is not something where you get rich quick. It's not something where you get rich overnight. And also, if you're interested in crypto, which we're here for, this is where big money is made, having this awareness, but also the patience to be in the right place at the right time and know how to not be too fearful when everyone else is, and also know how to get out of the market when everyone starts getting greedy. It only takes one cycle to change your life in crypto. I know from experience in the last cycle, regardless of doing this WatersAbove thing, I had a very, very good experience in the last bull run. Buying Bitcoin at $8,000, buying XRP at 17, 18, 19 cents, selling it for $1.80, $1.96 in some of my trades, getting out at Zilliqa at the exact top, getting out at Chainlink at $54 and $45. I mean, it was a pretty dope bull run. And it was because I had the awareness and the skills to navigate it all without getting suckered into everyone's emotional kind of cyclone that was being deployed month by month. Coupled with the information about the Shemitah year, that was just a game changer. So, we've definitely had some areas to improve over the years, and I've been humble in refining my process along the way. There's been some amazing things I've discovered since that last bull run, and I'm aware now how powerful all of this stuff is when you use it in synchronicity and don't get too distracted by what's going on the outside. And things like Federal Reserve meetings and interest rates and presidential elections, these are all distractions. They're taking you away from what's really happening. And all you got to do is follow the money. But the funny thing about where the money's going and how it flows is it's all tied to this esoteric system of gematria and numerology and astrology. And that's, of course, why you're all here. But getting back to this, exoterically speaking, so from the popular perspective, even if the market sells off post FOMC meeting on Wednesday, it's just the typical market behavior we see every election year and also in most dragon years as well. So regardless, this upcoming week is an incredibly important week for the markets. And unless there is a black swan event in October, then whatever happens this week will be unlocking a lot of clarity in regards to how the rest of this year is going to go. And of course, it's during the week of the lunar eclipse and the start of eclipse season. So if you're new here, welcome to your first eclipse season in the Matrix with awareness of it at least. It's a fun time for the wolf pack because we are well prepared for it. I know 99% of humanity has no clue, but here we are. It's amazing that we're all here together experiencing it. If you remember how last October went, that was a crazy time. Because if you look at the altcoins from the October 14th, 2023 eclipse moving into the Great American Eclipse of April 8th, 2024, it's probably one of the most amazing moves we've seen in the midst of probably the most devastating bear market in altcoin history. Right, where we've seen in the last bear market 99% losses in a lot of coins. Even Solana, which is one of the best performing projects of this current bull run, had a 97% correction in the bear market. Don't forget that. So with a recovery like this, it's showing where we're at, and we're kind of in that final moment energy. And I hate to say that because, some people think it's kind of like a buzz term now, but it really does feel that way. And the pivot for everything was October 14th. Look at that. That was the solar eclipse. And we just went perfectly weeks before the Great American Eclipse. If we just played that eclipse on this one project, it would have been an almost 1000% move. So now that we have this awareness, it's important that we use it. And I mean, how incredibly powerful is this stuff going to be in the next bear market, guys? Knowing this information, I mean, wow. Look at this. This was the lunar eclipse in the lunar cycle. This was a 60% correction in a single week for Solana. Massive stuff. It's important to know. So we have the keys here. It's pretty amazing. So that's your harvest moon decoded. Now let's get into these charts, starting with Bitcoin to recap how this past week. Actually, no. Before I do that, I just want to look quickly at 1964, and then we'll get into Bitcoin. This is completely unscripted. I wasn't planning this, but now that I've thought about it in the middle of the podcast, I want to kind of explore it for a second. So this was 1964. If you're unaware, the reason we brought this up, you go to Dragon, Zodiac. The reason we brought this up is because it's the exact type of dragon year. You can see it's the wood dragon, and here we are in 2024 in the year of the wood dragon. Interestingly enough, this was a bullish November. We just kept moving up after the Hebrew New Year. And then we corrected into December, but then look, finished off the year and just kept going until February, right there at the start of the year of the snake. Then we had a little bit of chop. We moved up into May, and then things got pretty saucy. It would be interesting to see the eclipses back in 1965. So what would be better to do than pull it up? Oh, would you look at that? Would you look at that? First solar eclipse of the year was May 30th, 1965. So right before that, and that's typical. That's very typical. Okay, so what happens is we top out slightly before the eclipse. That's very normal. And then look at that correction that we had into June. Right there after that lunar eclipse, and then a big pivot, and then continued up, all the way until the following February in the year of the horse. It would be incredible if the stock market and this entire market continues to move up into the year of the horse. I mean, this would effectively be right there, I guess, at the end of the year of the snake, technically. Let me go back and just double check. January 20th, 1966. So yeah, that was like get out right at the end of the year of the snake. And then it just started to get horrible. But this red box was a Shemitah year, and we don't have that in this situation this year. We don't have another Shemitah until 2027. So I'm not considering that. But wow, if we have a bullish year of the snake throughout all the way through Q4 of next year, that would be very interesting. That would not be in alignment with what my anticipate, but I am anticipating the year of the snake to have a bullish phase or a couple of bullish phases, and that's something I went very detailed into in my year of the snake decoded sneak preview, which is also included in the crypto decoding blueprint. And I will also be doing a year of the snake decoded for you guys here on Patreon in probably January. Right there at not the new year, but like maybe the second or third week of January. All right, but very interesting how we had a bullish election time frame and a little bit of a correction there into December, but then had the typical end of the year of this dragon bullish. It's very typical. It's very normal for us. Bitcoin at 60K. It's good to see, but we need to be honest. As usual, we're going to be hiding all the drawings. We're just looking at the Bitcoin daily chart right now, and one thing to mention to kick things off is the recovery that we had over the past week stalled out at this very important moving average, which is the daily chart 55 simple, the 55 SMA. So it's great that we got this buyback above the 200 exponential moving average, but what I want to see is Bitcoin concretely closing daily candles above the 55 SMA. Then I would like to see a wolf cross, which is this yellow moving average, the 8 simple crossing above the 55 simple. And then I would like to see Bitcoin getting back above this 200 simple moving average. What would be even better is if this 55 simple can cross back above the 200 simple, because the posture that we're in right now, because I just said a bunch of things that are not the case right now. That tells you all that the posture that we're in right now is not looking so good. It's showing weakness on the daily chart. Okay. Now, what we want to do is we always zoom out. Here we are on the 2-day chart, and things aren't looking as rough. All right. You can see that we're holding the 200 exponential after 2 clear retests this year. And the 200 EMA is actually above the 200 SMA, which gives us confidence for a support below us. This is like the net below us, if you will. And this shows Bitcoin does in fact have strength at the 50K level, which is now becoming more obvious with every push down to 50 or like the lower 50K region. It follows with a buyback to the 60K area shortly after. It's a very impulsive buyback. Pretty much every single time we start to get back to the mid 50K zone, we get back to 60. So that's nice to see. But regardless, I still want to see a wolf cross on this 2-day chart of the 8 getting above the 55. And now let's look at the 3-day. It's the same story. So we have high, lower high, lower high, lower high, followed by low, lower low, lower low, lower low. And we're getting rejected on some of these key moving averages. It's not good to see. Although we still have on the 2-day and the 3-day, the 200s are okay. We have a safety net in case we're in black swan vibes, which I'm not calling for, but those are things to keep in mind. We have this, now that we brought it up, we have this 200 simple on the 3-day chart right there in that previous trading range. One of the longer term horizontal trading ranges that we had near Q4 into the transition of 2024. And that was right around when the Bitcoin ETF was approved and launched. Second week of the year. I'm not calling for that, but we do have these key moving averages in that zone. So it would be indicative of a bounce if we were to get that low. But I'm not seeing that, especially with the 4th solar eclipse of our solar cycle. This is typically a very bullish time frame that we're moving into post the last solar eclipse of our solar cycle, which is October 2nd. Now let's get over to the 5-day chart, and you can see that our key moving averages are actually in a similar posture to the way they were last year, at this time last year, where we have the 8 simple and the 55 simple moving average kissing each other, and Bitcoin clearly doesn't want to stay below that 55 SMA for too long. But it's ideal that if Bitcoin can close this next 5-day candle back above the 55 SMA, which closes effectively tomorrow night into Tuesday, this closure might be more important than today's weekly close. So keep that in mind. We want to see Bitcoin close above 60K, likely today, and also even more important tomorrow. And then we have Tuesday. It's the first day of the FOMC, and then we have Wednesday. Really kind of precarious. And when we check on the weekly candles, we can see that we are above the 55 simple. We did sort of get a back test there, but we're reaching the 8 right now, 8 simple moving average, and we're having some issues here. So it would be great to see tonight closing above 60K, but really what we want to get back above is 65. So just recovering 60 is not good enough. So no parties until 65K on a weekly close. For right now, we're just kind of ranging at the bottom end of the range. But it is good to see that we're back here. It would be great to see that close above 60, especially after last week's lower low close in the structure. That was not good. It's of course sketchy, but we're still maintaining this bull flag structure nonetheless, so it's not as scary just yet. All in all, this recovery of almost 10% that we're experiencing this week was an impulsive buyback, and that's what we like to see. And since I mentioned the bull flag, let's pull that up. I believe I drew that out last week. Look at the daily. Again, the purpose of this bull flag wasn't to show the exact perfect resistances or supports. It's more to just give you an idea, because in crypto you have so much volatility, so you want to hit the most touch points as possible when making trend lines. And that's what I did effectively here. And you can see that every time we're coming back to the bottom of this flag, we're having a pretty impulsive buyback, which is great to see, but we are still clearly getting resistance at the top. And if we were to entertain this on half staff, be getting a move just to about 100,000 Bitcoin. And that's like a big kind of conversation right now. It's been a big conversation, I think, even in the last bull run. But then once we went through the bear market, it became very polarizing. Some people are just like completely against the idea of it. Some people are very much in the camp of like those talking heads that are out there, like Kathy Wood and Michael Saylor and all those people that are talking about like a 500,000 and 1 million Bitcoin in this shit. It's cool. It's cool to theorize and to have all that stuff, but there needs to be something backing it, right? In my crypto decoding blueprint, I've taken all the data I possibly can and then the exoteric stuff as well, so that I could have something to kind of point to be like, okay, this at least makes sense. And one thing that's really interesting is stock to flow, where when you look at stock to flow, and this has its own issues, of course, don't get me wrong, but even in the last cycle, we did catch up to stock to flow and we did get above stock to flow around the same exact time in regards to the upcoming halving. Now, right now, if you look at this color that we're in, which is like this orangey color, we were in the sideways moment right before moving up. It was the same case over here too, kind of sideways, and then we started to recover. Same thing right here. You can see in this red to orange, we were sideways, and then right after that, we started to advance pretty quickly. We're moving into that. Let me see. Pretty much there. We're very close. So, post-halving, orange into this light orange phase, post-halving, orange into this light orange yellow phase, post-halving, you see, I would be surprised if Bitcoin doesn't at least catch up to stock to flow one more time. And if we looked at where stock to flow is right now, today, it's at 101,000, which is where that bull flag would take us. So if we look at where it would be around the end of this year, in the month of December, it would be at 160. And then if we looked at where it would be in January into February, which is what I see being the next, the next big cycle peak, that's almost 250. So again, this has been pretty ironclad. I mean, every single cycle, when we make this stair step up, we catch up to it. Will this be the first time it doesn't work? Sure. I mean, anything is possible in the matrix, but it's worked every time, at least catching up to it. And if you were to see where we would catch up to it anywhere in Q4, that'd be above 100,000 and putting us into potentially the multiple 6 digits. It would be great to see, of course, but I have my own take on things where I think if we are to be seeing like a 250,000 or more Bitcoin, there's going to be some really big problems in the general market. Like gasoline prices will probably be much higher. Food prices will probably be much higher. All energy will be much higher. So it's like a double-edged sword situation. But we do have this technical kind of idea here, and this would be no different than the bull flag that we had, or not necessarily the bull flag, but sort of within reason of what this bull flag was over here that had this kind of pump fake, of an exoteric popular event called the first Bitcoin ETF approval and BlackRock becoming a huge part of the conversation, and VanEck, etc. It's pretty much the same move. It's pretty much the same move, guys, and that puts us into around 6 figures. So we'll have to see, but we definitely want to look at things from a horizontal perspective before getting caught up in just patterns, remember, always. And if you don't know anything about this TA kind of stuff and you want to learn more, the Crypto Mastermind will cover that for you over at WatersAbove.com. we want to get back above this 65, 64 level. So now that I brought up the importance of the horizontal levels, that's where this chart comes into play. So now that we've effectively backtested the previous trading range several times, we have lower highs also since the July peak, which was our last time trading at 70K. And since then, we've went all the way down to 49K. So that was a huge swing to have from this swing high to swing low. It's like its own fib that you could pull and do TA on in a shorter time frame. What we really want, though, is recovery above this 0.5 fib. That will make this last retest at the 236 feel better for all of us. And then from the next stage of the recovery, we would want to get back in this golden pocket and then effectively above it. And that's perfectly sort of like in alignment with the overall analysis that I've had for months now, going on a half a year, for the 71,500K level. So I can't give too much more of an update from there. We just want to see this weekly close coming in a couple of hours, hopefully above 60,000. 61,000 would be even better, getting us above this 0.5 fib. And then we have the FOMC meeting coming up, and we know it's going to be volatile as hell. And then we have also noticed when we get through the pair of eclipses, which is September and October eclipse, it's after that pair of eclipses that we start to see Bitcoin really do well. So I know September and October are like the black swan months, but we shouldn't be that, it shouldn't be that weird just yet. You know, I do think the election has an opportunity for something a little different, you know, a little spicier than our typical elections. That's to be expected. But I'm not entirely convinced that it's going to affect the markets that much. And the Bitcoin conversation in particular. If anything, I think negative events are kind of pro-Bitcoin in many ways, especially with the war situation and sanctions. And, you know, it's kind of the effect that happened post the Russia-Ukraine invasion. But let's move on. We have a couple of projects to cover. Probably going to be fast on ETH today because there's really no update. We made it into the lower end of the trading range. We are now on almost 2 weeks of a little bit of recovery, even though this is like a micro bear flag. I really want to see ETH breaking above this level right here of September 2nd. So getting into this more neutral leveled out area of about 2,550. As long as we're below there, which is this 618, it's not good. I don't like to see on a chart with this much data, you know, from this swing high to the current place we're at now, 3 years of data, and we're getting below the 618 after a rejection at the 888. I don't like that. That's a really awkward. And then you see where my cursor is right here with all of these touch points on support. And then once we broke through it, we came back up to that exact point and got rejected, confirming prior resistance or prior support is a potential new resistance. I don't like that. ETH needs to get back above 2,900. Until then, this looks horrible, which is crazy because ETH had like a really amazing recovery and it did not have as much losses this bear market as we saw in a lot of other projects. It only had an 80%, which I know in stock market terms is devastating, but in crypto we're used to it. But it had an 80% correction fairly quickly and then just recovered for this higher lows, higher highs structure into our new cycle, as you can see. So is this just a back test of the supports, you know? Yes, I believe so. But I can't like let my feelings overtake the reality. So yes, this could be just another typical back test on support, considering the support trend line here. And, you know, maybe we could even have fun and double click it and extend it further and see what else we're getting. Well, shit. I mean, it's pretty fucking important. This back test here, this rejection on the automatic rally, we'll call it a rejection here. And then this was the breakout into the bull run. I would like to believe that this trend line will hold. Okay. I'm not saying it will, but I would like to believe it will, especially with how positive ETH's price action has been, considering its bear market where we had even like Solana lose 95%. This only lost 80, and then the way that it recovered was pretty nice, even though percentage wise, there was a lot more money to be made on Solana. All right, let's move on. XRP, also not a whole lot to talk about because we haven't had too much data develop. It's like weird that XRP is just following Bitcoin. It's like Bitcoin goes to 58K, then XRP is 58, then it goes to 59K, and XRP goes to 59 cents. It's like copying. Very strange. Positive news is we're still in the middle of this horizontal trading range, and we have a clear resistance at 59. Let's just call it 60 cents. So what I want to see is XRP closing above 60 cents in the short term on the weekly. It's probably not going to do it this week. And again, still the same analysis. As long as Bitcoin is below 71,500, then don't expect much more expansion in XRP. It requires Bitcoin price discovery in order for XRP to go into price discovery. So this key level of 70 cents is still our major resistance to break. And until then, the analysis doesn't change. So we're going to Ondo. No idea what this is, so this will be my first time covering this, I believe. It's always great to cover new projects. This launched back in the beginning of the year, so we are working with 1 year of chart history. We have a couple things we can do. First and foremost, we're going to map out our supports and resistances. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this line here because of this structure that we had in that final back test. And then here. Okay, so we have this little previous trading range with a little bit of volatility, kind of deciding what to do next, and then effectively broke out. And then after it broke out, you can see on its first leg up into the price discovery continuation, it back tested the line. Now it's even more noticeable because it's back tested again, and it's now kind of been snaking around this level of, what do we call it, 63 cents. So that's very important regarding our supports. And this is a huge trading range, by the way. It's about a 30% move. We could absolutely fall back to the bottom of this. I'm not calling that it will. I'm just saying that it's a possibility. Now, here's some problems that we have in this chart. You could already see. We had over here, next leg up into price discovery, we attempted to hold this for about a little bit over a month before breaking out into yearly highs in June. Then we came back below it and started treating that same level of like 77 cents as a resistance. So that's not nice to see either. Okay, so this is a key level, and what we're going to do now is pull a fib. I'm going to pull it there. I don't really like this event right here. I can't tell if that's accurate data, so I'm going to pull it to there. Double click. We're going to put this on linear because we're looking at a very small amount of chart history. We're only looking at 100 days, okay? So you can see the level that we were getting rejected at is the 236 fib. And this is important why you see the way that I started today's analysis. I'm not going to do this on every single project, by the way. It's just to give an educational, something educational. You see that where I mapped out this last red line aligned perfectly with one of the key fibs. Okay, that shows you that you don't need fibs. They just help getting some clarity. But what you should really get good at is reading the candles, reading supports and resistances, identifying your horizontal trading ranges. Because once you could do that, then you don't really need to rely on fibs as much. And all the fibs end up doing is giving you some extra confirmation, like an insurance policy. Okay. So you see where the 618 is? We could have seen that was so clear if we wanted to get upside levels. And that's what we're going to do now. But just naturally, look at where the 618 is, or the bottom of the golden pocket. Back test, high, gravitated back to this level, held it, gravitated back to this level, held it again, and then boom, busted through it. And then when we got back to it, rejection. So prior support became confirmed resistance, and then a big drop from swing high to swing low. What is this, 70%? Geez, 66% mid-cycle correction. This $1.11, $1.12 range is very important, because if we could break back above that, then I think we're going to be heading into the next phase of price discovery, which is possible for this project, because it looks like it's been doing pretty good. I mean, shit, it's about 200% from launch to where we are now, and to this high about 600%. I mean, a lot of projects did 600% during the move between October 2023 and April, let's just call it March 2024. But yeah, this is pretty fascinating to see how it made this type of move at a time frame where not a lot of other projects were doing well in May, June. So there must have been some sort of isolated situation for this, but it has done what every other project has done, which is a 60 to 70% mid-cycle correction. So you got to keep an eye out for the 112. This whole trading range right here becoming a resistance is not a good sign. Rejections off of the 236 is not good. And then just keep in mind, if we wanted to slide down, this would be your key level around 43 cents. And that would be another 30% correction from here. It's very possible. This has no chart history. It has no prior bull run experience. You know, it didn't live through the C19 crash, so you don't know how much it could get beat up. And that's why I'm cautious with shit like this. If you're if you want to play the swings, have fun, but you really got to time it, and you can't have so much confidence that it's just going to always do well. It's tough. It's a tough call when you have so little chart history. Hasn't proved itself. So, yep, keep those levels in mind. And then as for recovery, I want to see it back above the 382. Which would be all of this right here that we were rejected on back at April and May of this year, once we finished off the Great American Eclipse. Let's move on to injective protocol. It's been some time since I've looked at this clearly. All right. Wow. Okay. We had a new all-time high. Fuck me. Very, very interesting. Okay. So we have rally into May 2021. That was the end of the alt season. And then we had a big correction into about the same time Ethereum corrected to 2022. And then it started to pretty much move up all of 2023. Incredible 2023. Wow. Pretty much from the beginning of 2023 to the end. That was the bull rally for this project. You could see right here. January 1st. To January 1st, 3,000 fucking %. Mamma mia. So incredible to see. Stalled out in mid-March like everything else, has since had a 70% mid-cycle correction like everything else, but I like to see that it backtested the top of the golden pocket. That's a nice backtest to see, because look at this cluster over here of all of these rejections before it went into the selling climax. Well, now that we broke above this cluster over here, had a new high, we've now come back to back test that key level and hopefully hold it as a support. So $14 is key on injective protocol. And now we have a noticeable trend resistance right here. Could break through that easily. Just look out for when you break through these types of structures. It's typical to back test the outside of it. And then you want to clear this pocket somewhere between 24 to 30. And then party starts after 30. Although you got to keep this in mind here. This was a structure of supports that got back tested right there. And that rejection off of these supports confirmed a new resistance. And that's when it went another leg lower here, popped up, and then got rejected on this lower high. So this looks like the start of a bear market trend reversal. But I'm not calling it such because kind of the environment that we're in today. Project like this needed a little bit of chill out energy after a 3,000% move into price discovery. So yeah, injective is in price discovery, bullish price discovery to the upside. Great to see. Congratulations to anyone who's holding this project. And then if you want to see where the upside targets are, I mean, I could entertain $100. 40 is like your initial move up to this 1618, but you could see right here your 4236 is sitting around 110, and I don't know if the 1618 on log will hit, but 100 is possible. It would be about 100% move from the current high. So I don't know how much more like opportunity you have here. But from where we're trading at today, it would be about 400, which of course in stock market world is absolutely mind melting. But in crypto, we do that all the time. So I wouldn't personally be wanting to buy an asset that's in this position. Just I don't know how much upside potential it really has right now. It's not really, it's definitely overbought. Like, I mean, it's a random crypto project. Anyone can say like, oh yeah, well, there's a good dev team behind it and there's a good white paper and it does this, that, and yeah, but we've been through that shit so many times. We've been through that so many times and we've watched like stuff that looks like a golden child get sacrificed. So don't get, I try not to catch myself, you know, getting too suckered into the story. You know, stories are cute, but stories are also mythology. So let's move over to Turbo. I have no clue. Is this a meme coin? I think this is a meme coin. I could tell by the logo. All right. So we have chart history that goes back at least over a year. It's good to see. About 500 days now. Pretty much immediately launches and then loses 98% of its value. And then since it's done a pretty incredible move, but not without volatility along the way. So a 70% mid-cycle correction, another 70% mid-cycle correction, another 70% mid-cycle correction. You see what's going on here? This is meme coins for you. Just laddering up with 70% mid-cycle corrections over and over and over and over again. Now we're at 100 days of sideways. Sure, we've went another leg higher. I guess technically backtested this peak at launch, which is good to see a couple of times. Because we're in meme land right now, it's very tough to see exactly what the story is. But yeah. Oof, all the way up to the 9 spot. Yeah, this shit needs to chill out. Let's see where we're at in this pull. Okay, yeah. I think that's max where this is going, 3 cents. Which is still a pretty wild move, about a 700% move, but yeah, 11 cents. Even just a penny though is like pretty wild. And then did this just get corrected like as it almost hit a penny? Pretty much. This almost hit a penny and then it just started to keel over. It's been in this kind of flag energy. It takes you to about 5 cents. That would not be shocking either. Very, very, you know, just kind of playing a pattern over and over again here. You have 100 or 80 days sideways, got about 2 months sideways. Here you're about a little bit over that 111 days sideways. It seems to be doing a similar thing to like what Caspa did, right? Caspa just kept taking another leg up, big, like kind of decent sized mid-cycle correction, and then a little bit of sideways stair stepped up. This was actually a good backtest right here. The fact that it backtested this level, and then it went up for a 600% move. So it's crazy. These coins are wild, bro. Yeah. I gave a couple upside levels to keep in mind. Now, I'm not trying to be the bearer of bad news, but if I was to pull a reverse fib, this is your downside level if this is to correct a little bit deeper. It would be this 0018 level to here, 0015. Let me draw that out. And it's pretty clear. Peak, short-term rejection, break, okay? So yeah, that would be a 80% exactly on the back test. So if there was anything spicy to happen in this market in the short term, that would be the bigger downside target. And it would be triggered by a structural break below that candle right there. So the July lows. Look at the weekly though, because I think that matters. Okay, I actually take that back. I think it would be anything below this August candle. That would definitely show more weakness. But it is kind of like in this bull flag vibe. So, not the most confident situation, but we are in meme world still, obviously. Yeah, I mean, if we really played that, we could run into this by October solar eclipse and then take off. It's a pretty nice move up. So if you're somebody who has access to this project in whatever exchanges you're a part of, just be safe. You know, this is gonna be extremely volatile. Just be very safe. These are the types of things that you want to buy like in bear markets. You know, that's where you get the most lucrative moves. And then if you're just patient, you could hold through these 70% corrections along the way, and it's more likely that you just continue to appreciate more and more as the overall crypto altcoin market cap grows. Let's move on. We're looking at Jasmy. Okay, so Jasmy, it had a real nice recovery up until June. Fascinating how some projects went up into June. There must be some reason for that. So I have a fib pulled from this November peak down to the December lows. Had a really nice market structure in this bear market, considering it popped up above this major resistance level, which was a prior support, or sorry, a prior, just a key level. You know, really, that's all I need to say. Because all of these touch points here and then breaking below that after getting resistance on it confirmed the next leg lower, which would be called a selling climax, when all the selling pressure is exhausted. Then blasted above it and haven't really back tested it. So great move, of course, between the October lunar eclipse. Oh my God, 1,400%. Amazing move. It doesn't look like much, but then when you zoom out, this is one of the most disgusting charts in existence, you know? I mean, from all of these candles over here to where it is today, it's still 99% down. So if you caught the bear market, glorious, but it's not the greatest chart. We have to be honest with ourselves, you know, not the greatest chart. This is very much venture capital. Don't get it twisted. But now where we're at now, this style of peak is not the most comfortable. Don't love to see stuff like this. Got about a 55% correction from where we are now, about a total 64% if you're going to call this wick truth, and into the 382. So I got to admit, I like where it's at right now. I like where it's at right now. This is great because when you get above the 382, that's your automatic rally, and when you back test the 382, that feels good. Just know that back tests of the 236 are not weird. Happens all the time when we're talking about the overall market structure. So with that being said, from where we are now to retesting the November 2021 peak, when Bitcoin was at 69K back in November 2021, that'd be a 1,500% move. Now, if we were to get back to the bottom of this cluster right here before it just cascaded to the downside, that's an almost 5,000% move. So this is venture capital. You know, you throw 2% of your overall portfolio on this stuff and you could do really well. I'm not saying you should do that, but this is like something where you play with $100, $50, and if we can get anywhere near what it was doing in April of 2021, then shit, right? You just turned $50 into 4,000% up. What would that be? I mean, again, this is theoretical, but $2,000. It's not many places on earth you could do that. So, not saying to play with, if you have $40,000, don't put $40,000 in this. That would be dumb. Because yes, maybe you do become a, extremely wealthy person, but it's a Hail Mary pass. And if it goes against you, then not so good. See, I haven't decoded this thing. I don't know enough about it, and it doesn't have enough chart history. And the little bit of chart history that it has is horrendous. Hence why I'm calling it a Hail Mary pass. It doesn't have the experience like something like an Ethereum or a Bitcoin. It's just very much, yeah, it fell off a ladder pretty much early in the early days, and it left a dent in the soft spot of its head. So great move recently, sure, but in zooming out, it's like a tragedy. It's a small win within a tragedy. But that's not to say that venture capital could be a very lucrative thing for many. Now we're going over to Caspa. Okay, see what I mean when I was talking about that like turbo thing? It just keeps making new higher highs over and over and over again. And then lately, we have going back from November, almost a year ago. This is sort of when it's stalled out. And this might be the largest horizontal trading range we've seen on Caspa. 200 days now. Question is it over, or is it going to continue and just continue and continue? Well, one key thing to bring up is you see this major trend line here. This major trend line for the most part has held as a support all the way until we had the February top. And then this stalled out, it corrected back to around 10 cents, and it's been holding sideways now for a year. Again, the longest horizontal trading range we've seen for this particular project. Holding a lot of support over the past 100 days at around 15 cents and some noticeable resistance around 18 cents. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this line right here and just shift it to show kind of where we would need a break to enter price discovery. Also, if I wanted to have a short-term fib, I'm going to take it from this swing high to this swing low at the bottom. Let's extend it to like the end of the year. And this puts my 1618 somewhere around 27 cents. And if we're going to achieve that, that would be another 60%. So I don't want to discourage people, and I've never tried to discourage anyone away from Caspa, but like, I just don't know how much more juice is in the fruit. You feel me? I know that they have a community that's growing, and they do have a very successful token in regards to price action to kind of like hurdle behind, like huddle behind. Excuse the, but like they're like a team and they get to say that their team is winning. It's like the opposite of the XRP army, right? The XRP army right now, no offense, a lot of them are experiencing this like this depression. They're like, when will my coin win? The Hex community already experienced this crazy loss across the, their ecosystem. And there's like, it changes the vibe. Well, Caspa's like team feels like they're winning, right? And that winning energy, it works for a time, but then the fruit turns to a prune, and then now it loses all of its life force, right? Something can't just keep going up and up and up, right? There's eventually a time where the interest shifts, things reallocate to other areas. I'm not saying that it's done for Caspa. I just think that it doesn't shock me that it's been almost a year now kind of trading in this horizontal range. Now, if you bought this thing back in 2022 or even 2023, you were up. So you're not dealing with any like losses right now, seeing any red in your portfolio, and that's great to see. It's just the question of how much more opportunity does this have, and is this really the focus? Should you be focused on stuff that's already into bullish price discovery? That's your call. Me personally, I'm not really quite interested, but because I've been positioned majority of my portfolio in Bitcoin and Ethereum and XRP going back to the last bear market, where we saw lows of like $400 ETH, $7,000 Bitcoin, $8,000 Bitcoin, XRP below 20 cents, so where it's at 60 cents, and where Bitcoin is at with 60K, and where ETH is at with whatever, 2,500. If you bought that last bear market, and not the recent one, but the one before that, the last 2020, 2019 bear market, then you're kind of sitting pretty, right? And anything that you're like down in the short term, it's another day in the matrix, right? You've probably been through it already. I know people that were in Bitcoin in 2-3 cycles ago, when it was at $400. That's crazy. So again, it's just like the long term always wins. If you've been long term in Caspa, you're doing really well. Does this have more opportunity in the future, or does it have a lot of opportunity for this particular bull run? Sure, of course. Everything kind of does well during an alt season. It's just the question of, does this have as much opportunity? Now, if you want to play it safe and you want to bet on something that's clearly winning and has a positive trajectory, Caspa might be one of those options for you. Again, it's just up to you how you want to play the portfolio. I just don't personally like buying stuff that's well into price discovery. It's just my opinion, my take, and my experience, and also where I'm at with my portfolio. So, perfect place to wrap up today's podcast. I appreciate every single one of you. Hope you enjoyed this one. Really looking forward to this upcoming week. It's going to be really wild. If you're somebody who's new to these markets and you're not used to crazy, days in the market, maybe just don't even look at the charts on Tuesday and Wednesday. And keep in mind this important 5-day close that's coming in on Monday. And then we have today with the CME opening up right before our weekly close. It would be great to see Bitcoin above 60K. If it could recover rapidly to 61, that would look even better. But still, we have to be honest, no parties until 65,000. We're still just at the lower end of the trading range, and that will absolutely affect the majority of the altcoin market. So we're just trading sideways right now. And I will be updating you guys likely after the FOMC meeting this week with a text update in Patreon, just to kind of recap everything that's gone down. So in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your weekend in the Matrix. Much love.